Okay, so you guys have been sending in some seriously interesting stuff lately. And one thing that's really caught our eye is this whole concept of retrieval augmented generation, or RAG for short.
Yeah, RAG, it's definitely making waves right now, and the sources you sent over really dive deep into it.
They do. I mean, we've got everything from the nitty gritty of how it works to, like, the pros and cons, the challenges you face when you're trying to actually implement this thing.
And how to keep it running smoothly, which isn't a small feat.
Not at all. Plus, they cover all these amazing ways it's being used across different industries. So, our mission today is to break all that down.
Distill it, yeah, into those key insights.
Exactly. We want you to walk away from this deep dive really understanding just how much potential RAG has to, change the AI game without getting lost in the technical weeds.
Absolutely, and it's a game changer for sure.
Okay, so let's start with the big picture.
The big idea, yeah.
Imagine for a second that AI has this almost like a superpower.
Like a secret weapon.
Yeah. It can answer any question you throw at it.
Anything.
But here's the kicker. Not only can it answer it, but it can actually go out and find the most up-to-date information to make sure its answer is like spot on.
Right, like having access to this constantly updating encyclopedia.
That's RAG in a nutshell.
That's the core of it, yeah.
So it's not just relying on what it already knows, which, let's face it, can get outdated pretty quickly.
Especially in today's world, things change so fast.
It's like having an open book during an exam, except the book is the entire internet.
The entire constantly updated internet.
Exactly. Okay, so we've got this AI that can find the latest info, but how does it actually do that?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. It all boils down to two main steps. First, it goes out and finds the relevant information, which we call retrieval, and then it uses that information to actually generate a response.
The retrieval and generation dynamic duo.
Exactly. Think of it like this. You have a question.
Like, what's the latest news on?
Right, so the AI first needs to figure out, okay, where can I find information about this? That's the retrieval part. It's like searching through a massive library.
But it's got to be a smart search, right? Like, not just matching keywords.
You got it. It's more about understanding the meaning behind your question and finding info that truly matches that meaning.
So it's like having a super smart librarian who knows exactly what you mean, even if you don't use the perfect words.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so the AI has found the info. What happens next?
That's where the generation part comes in. The AI takes all that newly found info and combines it with your original question. Then it uses all of that to craft a response that is not only accurate but also tailored to what you asked.
So it's kind of like the AI is doing its research and then writing a report just for you.
Exactly. But it's happening super fast, obviously.
Okay, I think I'm getting the gist of how it works, but why is this such a big deal? What makes RAG so different from how traditional AI works?
Well, one of the biggest things is that RAG is constantly learning and updating its knowledge. Traditional AI models, they're trained on a fixed data set, and that's it. Their knowledge is kind of frozen in time.
So like a textbook that was published a few years ago?
Exactly. But with RAG, the AI can tap into the most current information available, whether it's news articles, scientific papers, or even social media posts.
Oh, wow. So it's always learning and evolving. That's a game changer.
It is. Another big advantage is accuracy. You see, traditional AI can sometimes make stuff up. They call it hallucinations.
Like the AI is seeing things that aren't really there.
Kind of. It's basically when the AI gives you an answer that sounds really confident, but is actually totally wrong.
That could be a problem.
It can be. But RAG helps to prevent this because it's grounding its answers in real-world information.
So it's like double checking its facts before it gives you an answer.
Right. And if it can't find any evidence to support what it's saying, it'll either tell you that or it'll just refuse to answer.
So it's a lot more trustworthy than traditional AI. What else makes it so special?
Transparency is another big one. With RAG, you can often trace back to the sources the AI used to generate its response.
So you can see exactly where the information's coming from.
Exactly. This is huge for building trust in AI because you're not just taking its word for it. You can actually go and verify the information yourself.
That's really important, especially in areas where accuracy is critical, like healthcare or finance.
Absolutely. And then there are the practical benefits like efficiency. Updating a RAG system is way easier and cheaper than retraining a traditional AI model. It's like updating a software program versus having to rebuild the whole thing from scratch.
That makes sense. And finally, there's the control aspect. With RAG, developers can actually choose which sources the AI has access to.
That's right. They can curate the AI's knowledge base, so to speak.
So it's not just learning from anything and everything out there.
Nope. which is important for ensuring the AI is getting its information from reliable sources.
So RAG really sounds like it's got it all going on. It's accurate, it's transparent, it's efficient, and it gives you more control.
It's a powerful combination for sure.
Now, can you give us some concrete examples of how RAG is actually being used in the real world? Like, what kinds of problems is it solving?
Oh, absolutely. One area where it's making a huge difference is customer service. Imagine talking to a chatbot that not only understands your question, but also has access to the latest product information company policies, the whole 9 yards.
No more getting stuck with those generic, unhelpful responses.
Exactly. RA is also revolutionizing journalism. Reporters can now use it to quickly fact-check their stories and pull up relevant data and statistics in real time.
Wow, so no more sifting through mountains of documents.
Look, it's all right there at their fingertips.
Go.
And in healthcare, doctors are using RAG to access the most up-to-date medical research and guidelines.
That's got to be a game changer for patient care.
It really is. And it's not just those fields. RAG is being used in legal practices,
Yeah,
e-commerce, education, you name it.
it seems like it's popping up everywhere.
It is. It's really enhancing industries and user experiences across the board.
Okay, so let's take a closer look at those two core components of RA you mentioned earlier. You've got the retriever and the generator. What are
Yeah.
they all about?
Okay, so think of the retriever as kind of a bloodhound.
It sniffs out the information.
Exactly. Its job is to go out and find the most relevant pieces of information from that vast external knowledge base.
And how does it know what's relevant?
Well, it uses your question as a guide. It analyzes your question and then looks for information that matches the meaning or intent behind it.
So it's not just matching keywords, it's understanding what you're really asking.
Exactly. It can use different methods like traditional keyword search or even more advanced techniques like semantic search, which really focus on the meaning.
So it's got to be smart.
It does. And the more sophisticated the retriever, the better the results,
Mhm.
because it's feeding that information to the generator.
Right. So garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
Yeah.
What about the generator? What's its role in all this?
So the generator is kind of like the chef in this whole operation.
It takes the ingredients and whips up a delicious answer.
You got it. It takes the information provided by the retriever, adds in its own knowledge about language and context, and then creates a response that is not only accurate but also easy to understand.
So it's kind of like the retriever is doing the research and the generator is writing the essay.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And just like with a chef, the quality of the ingredients matters. If the retriever gives the generator bad or irrelevant information, the output is going to suffer.
Makes sense. You know, I'm a big fan of analogies. They really help to make these complex concepts click. Do you have any other ways to think about RAG that might resonate with people?
Yeah, I do actually. How about this? Imagine you're a detective trying to solve a case.
Okay, I like where this is going.
The retriever is like your team of investigators who go out and gather all the clues and evidence. And then the generator is like you, the detective, who takes all that information and pieces it together to crack the case.
That's a good one. It really emphasizes the investigative aspect of RAG.
It does. Or
Yeah.
think of it like a GPS navigation system. You input your destination, and the retriever acts like the map database, pulling up all the relevant routes and real-time traffic information.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
And then the generator is like the navigation voice, giving you the turn-by-turn directions based on all that data.
So it's guiding you to the right answer.
Exactly. Another one that might help is the open book exam analogy. An AI without RAG is like a student taking a closed book exam. They can only rely on what they've memorized. But with RAG, it's like the student has access to all the textbooks and notes they could ever need.
So it's like giving the AI a cheat sheet, but a really smart one.
Exactly.
Okay, I think we've really hammered home the concept of bringing in external knowledge. So how exactly does RAG improve the accuracy and relevance of AI responses? We touched on it earlier, but let's break it down for our listeners.
Okay, so first off, RAG has access to the most up-to-date information. So its answers are going to be more current and relevant than traditional AI. It can even access information that wasn't available when the AI model was initially trained.
So it's not stuck in the past.
Not at all. Second, RAG is much better at grounding its responses in facts. Remember those AI hallucinations we talked about?
Yes, the made-up stuff.
Well, RAG is less likely to fall into that trap because it has to back up its claims with real-world evidence. It's like having a built-in fact-checker.
That's reassuring. What else?
It can also provide more contextually relevant answers. So instead of giving you a generic answer that might not be entirely applicable to your specific situation, it can tailor its response to your exact needs.
Oh, so it's like having a personal tutor who understands your individual learning style.
That's a great way to put it. And finally, RAG can be especially powerful in specialized fields where it can tap into domain-specific knowledge bases.
So, for example, a medical AI powered by RAG could access a vast database of medical research papers and clinical trials to give doctors the most accurate and up-to-date information.
Exactly. And a financial AI could access real-time market data and financial news to help investors make informed decisions.
Wow, the possibilities are endless.
They really are.
But of course, no technology is perfect. What are some of the challenges involved in using our RAG?
Well, one challenge is making sure the information the AI retrieves is actually accurate and relevant. There's a lot of information out there, and not all of it is reliable.
So it's kind of like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
It can be. That's why having a really good retrieval system is crucial. Another challenge is the complexity of the overall system. Our RAG systems are more complex than traditional AI models, which can make them more challenging to build and maintain.
We're moving parts, more potential for things to go wrong.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of potential bias. If the AI is learning from biased sources, its responses could also be biased.
So garbage in, garbage out again.
Yeah. And finally, there are the computational challenges. Processing all that external information can be very resource intensive.
So it's not exactly a plug and play solution.
It's not. It requires careful planning and expertise to implement effectively.
Okay, let's say someone wants to implement a RAG system. What are some key things they should keep in mind?
Well, first and foremost, they need to have a clear understanding of the problem they're trying to solve and how RAG can help.
So don't just jump on the bandwagon because it's the latest trend.
Right. Make sure it's the right tool for the job. Then it's important to choose the right tools and models. There are lots of options out there, both open source and commercial. So it's crucial to select the ones that are best suited to your specific needs.
So do your research.
Absolutely. And then you need to think about how you're going to integrate the retrieval system with the generative model. This involves things like pre-processing your data so the AI can understand it, and post-processing the AI's output to make sure it's in the right format.
It's more than just plugging two things together.
It is. And of course, you need to be aware of the potential challenges we talked about earlier and have a plan for addressing them.
So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing?
Nope. Ongoing maintenance is key.
What does that involve?
Well, for one thing, you need to make sure the AI's knowledge base is kept up to date. This means adding new information, removing outdated content, and so on.
So it's like tending a garden. You got to keep weeding and pruning.
That's a great analogy. You also need to manage the computational costs, which can be significant. And you might need to implement strategies for breaking down large documents into smaller chunks so the AI can process them more efficiently.
Sounds like there's a lot to keep track of.
There is. But luckily, there are tools and frameworks emerging that can help with all of this. Some even allow the RAG system to learn and adapt over time, so it gets better at retrieving and generating relevant information.
So the technology is constantly evolving.
It is. And that's
Okay.
really exciting.
Okay, let's go back to those industry applications for a minute. You talked about healthcare and finance. Can you give us a little more detail on how RAG is being used in those fields?
Sure. In healthcare, RAGs is being used to help doctors make more informed diagnoses and treatment decisions. It can provide them with the latest research findings, clinical guidelines, and even personalized patient data.
So it's like having a team of medical experts at your fingertips.
Exactly. And in finance, our RAGs is being used to improve things like risk assessment, fraud detection, and investment strategies.
Wow, so it's really having a tangible impact in these critical industries.
It is. And that impact is only going to grow as the technology continues to develop.
Okay, let's get a bit more technical again. You mentioned semantic similarity search as one of the key techniques used in RG. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. So semantic similarity search is all about finding information that is similar in meaning to your query, even if the words are different. It does this by converting your question and the potential answers into numerical representations called embeddings.
Embeddings.
Yeah, it's basically a way of representing the meaning of words and phrases as numbers.
So words that have similar meanings will have similar numerical representations.
Exactly. And this allows the AI to find information that is semantically similar to your query, even if it doesn't contain the exact same keywords.
That's pretty clever. But you also mentioned that this approach has some limitations. What are those?
Well, one limitation is that it can sometimes be difficult to find the absolutely most relevant information. The AI might retrieve some information that is somewhat related to your query, but not exactly what you're looking for.
So like getting a good but not perfect match.
Right. To address this, a lot of our Z systems use re-ranking techniques. This is where a second AI model comes in and reevaluates the initial search results to try and bring the most relevant information to the top.
So it's like having a second set of eyes to double check the results.
Exactly.
And you mentioned some specific tools that are used for building these retrieval systems. Can you give us a few examples?
Yeah, there are tools like pgvector, which is an extension for the popular PostgreSQL database that allows you to do efficient vector similarity search.
So it's specifically designed for working with those numerical embeddings.
It is. And then there are web development frameworks like Django, which can be used to build the overall infrastructure for the retrieval system.
So it's a whole ecosystem of tools working together.
It is. And it's all constantly evolving and improving.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into RAG, what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
Well, I think the biggest thing to remember is that RAG is a truly transformative approach to AI. It allows us to overcome some of the key limitations of traditional AI models, leading to systems that are more accurate, reliable, and trustworthy.
It's AI that can learn and adapt in ways that were never possible before.
Exactly. And that has huge implications for how we use AI in the future.
So it's not just a cool technology, it's something that has the potential to really change the world.
It does. And that brings us to a thought-provoking question for our listeners. How do you think RAG might impact your own field or area of interest?
That's a great question to ponder. The possibilities really are endless.
They are. And as RAG continues to evolve, it's going to be fascinating to see what new applications and innovations emerge.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of RAG.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep those questions coming.